It moved like a ghost, faster than light, and we built it with scraps, grief, and fury. In the hollow dark between stars, where even Empire ships tread carefully, a sheep passed through their perimeter grid. No ID, no signal, no known origin. It didn't warp, it didn't blink, it moved, and everything behind it died. The last breath of Earth had tasted like smoke and ash. Buried deep beneath the frozen shell of Europa, the remnants of humanity clung to heat, old tech, and older stories. The stars, they said, were no longer safe. Not since the ascendancy arrived 20 species, bound in doctrine, who declared humanity disordered, unfit, and volatile. They burned the moon first. Then Mars fell within days. Earth lasted 11 hours. Idris Harlan was 13 when the skies over Quito opened like a wound and the orbital plates rained fire. Now 39. He hadn't seen real sunlight in over 2 decades. The artificial dawn in Vault 3 flickered on schedule, casting blue-white light over his scarred hands and grease-streaked arms. As he reattached the control servos of Ark ship Helix Zero, a vessel that had no name, no registry, and wasn't supposed to exist, a dozen children ran past the open scaffold, laughing like they didn't know what the word extinct meant. Good. Let them not know. Drive coils humming again, said Rourke, a former engineer from Lunar Gate 6. He was missing one. I am part of his leg, but I don't know how long this thing holds. Harlan. The casing's half melted. Idris didn't look up. He was watching a fragment of old Earth footage replay on the holocore. A woman cradling her child, crying in a language long lost, as the skyline behind her buckled and burned. Doesn't have to hold, Idris murmured. Just has to. Work. Once. Rourke sighed. You still think this'll make a dent in them? The Empire owns half the known stars. They've got fleets the size of continents. And we've got this. He kicked the leg of the makeshift vessel. Idris stood. They think we're gone. That was their mistake. Vault 3, the last of the hidden Europa bunkers, was carved from ice and old bones. Deep AI cold slept in its deepest layers, unreachable since the blackout. Every surface was patched, repurposed, or bleeding rust. But in the heart of it all, nestled in the cryoforge once used for mining the Helixo project, lived. It wasn't a ship, not really. It was a weapon, a blade sharpened over 26 years of exile and rage. Built from salvage, powered by unstable drive fragments, controlled by something Idris wouldn't talk about, something found drifting in Titan's orbit, a relic from Earth's last act of defiance. Every component of the Helixo bore a story. The plating came from the shattered hulls of fallen rebel cruisers. Its propulsion system was a mix of Martian skip drives and black box tech the Empire never managed to decode, and the core, only Idris and the Deep knew. Come see this, whispered Milavos, Vault 3's last surviving astrocartographer, calling Idris to the observatory ring. He followed, voice still quiet from the weld fumes. Another debris cluster. No, she said, worse. The projector bloomed into view. A wide-scan pulse from a deep-range Recon satellite believed lost years ago had pinged something massive near Saturn's ring plane. Idris frowned. Ship. No heat signature, no drive emissions, but she tapped in enhancements. A pattern unfolded across the curved screen. Not motion distortion, space bending wrong, rippling. It was coming inward. Idris narrowed his eyes. ETA. It'll pass Mars' grave in 8 hours. Earth's orbit in 10. He didn't speak. Mila did. No ID, no signal, no origin. Idris Harlan turned from the screen. Then it's not one of ours, but it's moving too fast. Faster than skip drives can process. The Empire won't see it coming. That made Idris pause, unless they sent it. Or Mila hesitated, or something else did. In the dark, beneath 50 meters of cryo ice, the Helix Zero thrummed quietly. Like something holding its breath, the children had gone to sleep. The Forge teams were running diagnostics. Rourke was drinking rust-filtered ethanol and cursing the gods. And Idris? He stood before the black casing of the Helix's core. His hand rested against the alloy, feeling the thrum of the impossible. He remembered the day they found it. A pod, floating silent in the upper reaches of Titan's magnetosphere, cracked open, bleeding radiation and something stranger. Inside, not a person, not a machine, but a convergence, mind and metal, burned with the last message of Earth. Never forgive, never forget. Whatever was coming toward Earth, it wasn't human, but it might remember them, and it might not be alone. They told us to kneel. We didn't, so they erased our sky. The ascendancy of oracles, the ruling body of the Galactic Empire, was not made of warmongers. They were zealots. To them, order was holy, harmony divine, and humanity chaos incarnate. That judgment had been passed a generation ago when humans resisted assimilation, rejected genetic alignment, refused neural submission. The ascendancy's judgment was final. Humanity was to be quarantined, pacified, or failing that purged. They succeeded, or so they believed. But now, a distortion wave was cutting across system maps from Pluto to Jupiter. It left no drive, signatures, no entropy trails, and defied all orbital projections. It ignored physics. Fleet Commander Thauron of the Oracle Guard watched the same data loop for the 5th time. His translucent hands trembled with something foreign, unease. This object, he said slowly, addressing the Watcher Circle, is beyond recorded capabilities. It does not decelerate. It does not respond, and it is heading directly toward Sol. You mean the Grave World? Another corrected him. Thauron's spines flared. I mean Earth. And if this is human, it defies our understanding. The Watchers murmured. One finally spoke, an elder whose eyes had seen 5,000 rotations. Humanity is extinct. Then who flies? The ghost. Europa's Vault 3 command dome trembled under the hum of renewed power. Idris Harlan stood beside the helixal core, watching as the AI flickered into half-consciousness. She's waking, said Mila Voss, voice barely above. A whisper. The core wasn't like other machines. It had no form, just light rippling through a jagged black sphere. Inside it swam fragments of voice, memory, rage. When it spoke, it didn't speak with words. It impressed meaning. Danger approaches. Prepare greater than Idris frowned. It's not alone, is it? Multiple vectors, ascendancy ships inbound. 3 days maximum greater than Rourke, limping into the bay, snorted. Well, we poked the gods and they finally looked down. No, Idris murmured. Something else poked them first. Something older. He pulled up the telemetry. The object that had passed Saturn was no longer a smear on scans. It had altered course, accelerated, not toward Earth anymore, but toward the Empire's ships now en route to Sol. Like a predator that had noticed prey, Commander Thauron stood aboard the Vigilant Mercy, an orbital dreadnought stationed at Neptune's perimeter. The ship's psychic choir, 36 telepathic beings, fused into a single navigational intelligence, suddenly went silent. Not quiet, silent. Status? Thauron barked. The helmsman's carapace twitched. A known anomaly just passed through them. No contact. They're catatonic. Before he could finish the sentence, a blinding pulse tore through the outer hulls of escort group Aurelia. No explosion, no heat, just collapse. 3 ships folded into nothingness, like paper crushed by an invisible fist. Thauron's voice was hollow. They didn't fire. They didn't defend. They didn't even see it. A whisper followed a recorded flicker from the lead escort's last moment. To fast to. That was it. Nothing more. Thauron turned to his communication officer. Send a system-wide lockdown, effective immediately. Declare Sol system red tier quarantine. Nothing in, nothing out. And the object? The officer asked. Thauron stared into the swirling projection. It is hunting. Back in Vault 3, Idris sat with Mila and the children in the common hall. Lit by the glow of an old Earth projection dome, it showed trees, the kind that move with wind. One child, Tam, asked, "Why did the stars hate us?" Idris didn't answer right away. Then, finally, softly, "Because we remembered being free." Tam nodded, like that made sense. Behind them, the Forge teams worked without pause. The helixal core pulsed brighter now, sensing with patterns it hadn't shown before. Patterns Idris hadn't programmed, like it was communicating, responding. "We need to launch it soon," Mila said quietly. "Before they glass Europa too." "We will," Idris replied, "but not yet." "What are we waiting for?" He glanced toward the skin feed. The object, still without name or signal, had begun a new trajectory. It had intercepted one of the Empire's deep patrol fleets near Uranus. Nothing remained. "It's fighting them." Mila blinked. "You think it's helping us?" Idris shook his head. "No, it's not for us, but it's not with them either." Rourke stepped into the room, breath tight. "We picked up a signal, intercepted something old, buried in the sub-ether, a fragment." He threw it onto the wall projector. Crackling audio spilled out. "Containment protocol breached. Human-derived artifact accelerating exponentially. Sentient vector. refused communication, altering reality's signature. Idris froze. It's ours. No way, Mila whispered. Nothing human could move like that. No one survived. Not no one, Idris murmured. His hand brushed the helix core. Whatever had been born of Earth's last screams, it had survived. But what it had become was no longer entirely human, and it was coming. From the edge of interstellar silence, a ripple of non-existence washed across Empire relay satellites. Near Jupiter, the Oracle Guard had no name for the phenomenon. Their tech could not parse its motion, no drive, no matter, no time signature, just movement. And when the Empire's final listening post at Ganymede went dark, the last message it broadcast before vanishing was not a signal. It was a word. One word. Helix. We didn't plan to fight. We planned to outlive the truth. But the truth came back, armed. The name spread like a virus. Helix, the Ascendancy's most secure systems, vaulted comm beacons. Deep void archives, even memory sealed. Oracles began to whisper it. No encryption could halt it. No psychic dampeners could slow it. They tried to purge the syllables, but the more they erased, the louder it echoed. The name carved itself across the minds of those who had silenced Earth. And then something far worse happened. People started remembering. Vault 3 was no longer just surviving. It was building. Fast. The Helixo prototype, once a scrap-born secret, now stood like a black monolith inside the forge, its skin crackling with unknown energy. Not raw plasma. Not something deeper, something reactive to thought. Idris Harlan hadn't slept in 2 days. The latest scan showed what was left of the vigilant mercy, the Empire's most advanced. Dreadnought spread across Jupiter's orbit like dust. The Helix, the real one, the one they hadn't launched, had never left Europa. But something else had, something that had once been part of Helix, a shard, a prototype, maybe even a backup soul. Whatever the artifact had been, it had learned to remember on its own, learned to move, to choose, and now it was attacking the Empire without orders. I think, Mylavos said, approaching him in the forge's control deck. I think we called it. Idris blinked. We didn't send a signal. You didn't need to. The core's been bleeding date-old code, pre-fall Earth signals, instinctive pulses. She handed him a drive. You know, what's on this? He plugged it in. A burst of noise, then clarity, a child's laughter, a mother's scream, wind chimes, nuclear sirens, the Eiffel Tower crumbling, Mars soldiers yelling over comms, a heartbeat, Earth's last memory. Idris turned to the Helixo core. You sent that. The black orb pulsed. Yes, memory is truth. Truth is weapon greater than. Rourke leaned in, watching nervously. You're saying the thing out there, whatever's tearing apart Empire fleets, is using our memories as guidance? Not just guidance, Mila whispered. Motivation. Across the stars, something was shifting, and it all there in expanse, where human survivors had been enslaved for decades. A revolt began with a simple act. Someone scrawled Helix across the wall of a ration station. Within a day, 17 guards were dead. On the fractured moon of Velis, a child no older than 6 began humming an Earth lullaby long lost to time. Her voice matched a frequency detected in the Helix artifact and on a distant, forgotten prison asteroid. Designated Null 47, a man with scars over both eyes looked up, smiled, and whispered, Told you we'd come back. All across the fractured edges of the Empire, those who bore even a whisper of Earth in their blood felt it, a pulse, a promise. They were not alone, Idris, Rourke said, scanning the telemetry. We've got movement again. How? Many, 7 Ascendancy cruisers, heading straight for Europa. How long? For hours. Mila paled. Then we're out of time. Idris stepped away from the console. The children were being evacuated to the deeper catacombs, the elders, the wounded, everyone who couldn't fight. They had no army, no fleet, just a half-born ship and the ghost of a machine. That remembered too much, but they had rage, and in the forged fires of humanity, that had always been enough. Bring the Helixo online, Idris ordered. Mila hesitated. It's not ready. You said. I know what I said. But now we have a choice. Either we stay buried and let them find us one child at a time. He placed his hand on the cold alloy of the Helix shell, or we become the myth they're afraid of. Launch bay doors creaked open, Europa's ancient ice groaning as pressure equalized. The stars beyond looked sterile, empty, but Idris felt something in the black, like a whisper. Then the Helix spoke, Vector locked. Ascendancy signal acquired. Greater than shall we begin? Greater than the voice had changed. It wasn't just machine anymore. It wasn't just code. It had sorrow in it. Anger. Memory. Idris smiled. Yes. Show them what we remember. The Helixo launched like a blade through silence, trailing no emissions, no engine flare. It didn't move like a ship, it moved like a thought. Within minutes, it intercepted the first Ascendancy cruiser. The Alundra hailed it, demanded identification. The Helix responded by bending space around the cruiser's forward array and folding its drive core inward until it imploded into nothingness. No shrapnel, no flame, just absence. The other ships opened fire. Beam arrays, graviton shears, psychic distortion waves, none of it touched Helixo. It moved between time, like it knew the fire was coming before it was ever lit. It destroyed them with efficiency, with knowledge, with precision only a human grudge could teach. From Vault 3, Idris watched, stunned. Did we build this? Mila asked. Idris didn't answer, because in truth, they hadn't. They merely remembered it into being. As the last of the Ascendancy cruisers burned, a single signal left Helix Zero's black core. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't hidden. It was a declaration, broadcast in every old Earth language. One sentence. We are not extinct. It wasn't war. It was memory sharpened into vengeance, saying the stars were out of places to hide. The broadcast struck like a meteor through the Ascendancy's soul. We are not extinct. For words that bypassed encryption, walls, silenced psychic dampeners, and cracked through light-year-wide propaganda networks with surgical cruelty. Words in 1,000 old human dialects. On every occupied world where children had been taught Earth was a myth, where rebels had been buried alive in silence, where memory itself had been outlawed, the message detonated. And it did what no Ascendancy weapon had ever managed. It made people feel again. In the great floating halls of Varn Koreth, the Ascendancy's central fortress mind, the Watchers gathered in emergency silence. Thorant stood before the High Conclave, his hands trembling, his spines folded tight in dread. He had seen the footage of what Helix Zero did to the 7 cruisers near Europa. They blinked out. He whispered, as if memory itself unmade them, the humans cannot do this. One of the Elder Watchers growled, they already have. A silence followed, not out of reverence but fear, a fear the Ascendancy had not tasted in centuries. They had broken Earth, burned its skies, vaporized its oceans, and still, something had survived, or worse, evolved. The eldest oracle, one fused to time streams and deep code, broke the silence. We must erase all trace, total ignition, no partial purges. Glass Europa, annihilate the ice moons, burn it all. The myth ends here. Back on Europa, Vault 3 groaned under the weight of power surging through its dying infrastructure. The Helix Zero had returned and touched, unreadable, unpredictable, and now it was growing. Its alloy skin rippled like black mercury. The AI core had fused further into the ship's lattice, creating new pathways Idris hadn't designed. The ship was learning, redesigning itself in real time, adapting faster than any known synthetic intelligence. Mila stared in disbelief. This isn't evolution, it's recursion. The more we remember, the stronger it gets. Rourke limped to the console, wiping sweat from his brow. We're down to backup power in the lower levels. The forge is overheating. Whatever it's doing, it's eating volts like a dying star. Idris didn't blink. His eyes were locked on the growing display of incoming threats. Ascendancy is coming. Full fleet. Not scouts. Not patrols. How many? Mila asked. He looked at her. All of them, above Europa's orbit. The stars warped as 43 ships emerged, carriers, dreadnoughts, psychic lances, grav binders. The fleet curved in a perfect formation around the ice moon, surrounding it like a noose. And for the first time in a century, they broadcast in the clear, a single voice gold, ancient, inhuman. Humanity, you are mistaken. You are not remembered. You are not feared. You are only unfinished. Then came the final word, erase. In the deep vaults of Europa, the children clung to each other as the ceiling shook. The sky above was beginning to boil, radiation levels spiked, pressure seals groaned. The first orbital lance hit just outside the southern ridge, vaporizing a mountain in an instant. Mila screamed over the comms. They've started the ignition. Vault 1 just went dark. Vault 2, gone. Rourke slammed his fist against the deck. We can't hold this place. They'll turn Europa into glass. Idris stood still. surrounded by flickering red lights. He didn't flinch. He didn't run. He listened to the helix core humming behind him like a storm held back by skin. Then, a voice, not from the speakers, from inside the forge itself, less than "Are you ready?" Greater than. He turned slowly. You can take them? Not all, but enough. If you believe," Idris whispered, "I believe in memory. I believe in rage." The core pulsed. Then unleash me greater than. The helixo launched again, but this time, it didn't move alone. As it surged into space, Europa's eyes fractured beneath it. Dozens of small drones, primitive, half-functional, cobbled together by human hands, shot up after it. But helix pulsed, and those drones transformed mid-flight. Their frames warped. Their systems ignited with impossible energy. They moved. With the same ghost speed, they became extensions of helix. Above, the Empire's fleet opened fire. The battle wasn't fair. It was surgical violence. Helix Zero vanished and reappeared inside dreadnoughts, carving them from the inside out. No explosions, just reversals of entropy. Ships folded into themselves. Fire didn't spread, it vanished. One Ascendancy battleship turned its psychic cannon on Helix, firing a memory disruption wave meant to erase the soul of anything human. But Helix didn't resist. It consumed the wave, then launched it back. The dreadnought's crew collapsed, screaming names they hadn't remembered in centuries. Human names, songs, final prayers, Earth's pain weaponized. On the ground, the vaults collapsed one by one. Vault 3 shuddered. The ice above them cracked in screams. Rourke coughed, blood running from his nose. "We need to go. This place won't hold." Milo was already moving toward the evacuation shaft, but Idris stood still, eyes locked on the tactical overlay. He watched as Helix-O fell silent in the middle of the fleet, stopped moving, then, all at once, exploded into light. A blinding, circular wave burst outward, pure white, crackling with data and history and grief. It wasn't a detonation. It was a broadcast. Every ship, every mind, every sensor that touched it saw something. Earth burning, children hiding in ruins, the final heartbeat of a forgotten world, and a single voice, whispering one final command: "Remember us." 31 ships were dead in seconds. The rest scattered, formation shattered, and from the center of the blast, the helix reformed, scarred, bleeding sparks, but alive. It had shown the enemy what humans were. Now it was time to show them what came next. We didn't win, not yet, but we made them run, and that changed everything. In the wake of the helix's white burst transmission, the stars above Europa fell eerily silent. Where once the Ascendancy's fleet encircled the ice moon, like a vice, now only wreckage floated, warped metal, splintered hulls, and drifting shards of memory interference tech short-circuited by the truth. 31 warships gone, 12 retreated, 0 dared re-engage. From Vault 3, Idris Harlan stared into the empty sky. They ran, Milo whispered. "They've never run." "They didn't run," Idris said. "They recoiled, like something touched a nerve too deep." Rourke dropped into a chair beside the helm. "And what nerve was that?" "Fear," Idris said. "The kind they thought they wiped out with our bones." A day passed in relative silence. The forge still smoked. Half the vault was gone. The helixo had returned, but barely. Its surface cracked, its AI stuttering in fragmented pulses. Core breach nominal, systems stabilizing, greater than. They had no time to celebrate. Mila scans confirmed it. The Ascendancy was regrouping. This time, they weren't sending warships. They were sending a cleaner. The ossuary construct was a myth, spoken of only in ancient Ascendancy doctrine. It was a weapon not meant for battle but extinction. It didn't fight. It unmade. No hull, no fleet, just a gravity well and a black sphere the size of a city, drifting in the folds of hyperspace. Wherever it passed, history vanished. Planets lost their name. Stars forgot their warmth. Now, it was coming for Europa. ETA, 47 hours. The cleaner will erase everything, Rourke said, pacing the broken floor of the command bay. Not just people, data, culture, memory. It'll wipe us so clean. It'll be like Earth never existed. "Can Helix fight it?" Mila asked, voice trembling. Idris didn't respond immediately. He walked to the shattered viewport, looked up at the stars, then back at the helix core, humming faintly in the forge below. "No," he said. A long silence followed. "But maybe something else can." Hidden deep in the forge's lower vaults, Idris and Rourke pried open a frozen vault door sealed since the Europa exodus. Inside, relics of Earth's final attempt to survive, fragments of old-world tech, data shards wrapped in leaded cases, and one central object, a dry mine, preserved in cryostatic ice. It was built in secret before the fall, designed by Earth's last rogue engineers, rumored to be the first fusion of human emotion and dark computation. The inscription on its casing read, "Project Spine if the body dies, the soul carries on." It's unstable, Rourke warned. Never activated. They said it was too dangerous. Good. Idris replied, "We need dangerous now." While Helix Zero underwent repairs, Idris carried the spine core into the main lattice chamber and connected it to Helix's interface. The instant contact was made. Sparks flew. The forge lights dimmed. The core screamed not with data, but with emotion, pain, fire, rage, memory. It wasn't just AI. It was vengeance condensed into will. The Helix core pulsed like a heart struggling to beat again. Then, Helix linked, spine accepted. The black shell of the ship's command interface split open, revealing an interior Idris had never seen: dark glass, lined with neural feedback gel. A cockpit but alive. Idris, Mila said, eyes wide with fear, "It wants a pilot." He nodded. "I built it to remember. Now it needs someone who won't forget." He entered the cradle, wires sunk into his spine. Not cold, but familiar. Not pain, but remembrance. He saw it all, Earth, before it burned. The faces of the dead, the sounds of screaming oceans and final resistance. He felt everything. And then he felt the cleaner, moving across the edge of known space, bringing with it the silence of oblivion. "Engage." Greater than Helix asked, voice fused now with spine. Idris answered without hesitation. "Let's make them bleed with what they tried to bury." The Helix didn't launch, it vanished. From Vault 3, Mila and Rourke watched the space where it had stood shudder and collapse into a ripple, as if the ship had skipped through the folds of memory itself. Then the message came. Seconds later, a visual burst: Idris standing in the Helix, eyes glowing with recursive data light, and the cleaner looming before him like a dying star. This is where memory makes its stand. The cleaner fired first. No light, no blast, just nullification, a sphere of erasure moving outward, designed to scrub identity itself. While Helix surged into it, core burning with every memory, Idris carried his mother's last breath, Earth's anthem, the cries of those lost to fire. He rammed into the wave and did not disappear. Instead, he changed it. Vault 3 erupted in alarms. Signal interference from beyond Jupiter. Mila leaned in, wide-eyed. "It's not an attack." "What is it?" She smiled through tears. "It's Earth." The Helix was broadcasting through the cleaner's own erasure field, feeding it the one thing it couldn't handle, memory, and the field cracked. The cleaner began to convulse in orbit, its perfect symmetry fracturing, not from damage, but confusion, like a god trying to process a scream it wasn't built to hear. Inside it, Idris Harlan stood, wrapped in a shell of light, feeding it every piece of lost human history, not to destroy it, but to overwhelm it. And somewhere in that deafening storm, a line etched itself into the network of stars. We were never ghosts. We were echoes, waiting to become thunder. He didn't fight with weapons. He fought with every truth they tried to erase until the silence screamed. The cleaner twisted in the dark above Saturn, its event shell collapsing like a dying thought. For millennia, it had floated, unchallenged through the void, a perfect machine of erasure, silent, absolute, until now, until him. Inside the heart of the machine, Idris Harlan stood within Helix Zero's living cockpit, veins laced with feedback from the spine interface, memories, rushing into him like floodwater through a cracked dam. He wasn't alone. He felt them all, every scream Earth never had time to finish, every whisper in the smoke, every child buried before they could learn to speak. The Helix burned with them, the spine howled with them, and the cleaner, the Unmaker, was faltering, under the one force it had never accounted for, remembrance. Back on Europa, Vault 3's walls trembled. The forge, half-flooded and burning from the inside, was held together by nothing but stubbornness and duct tape systems. The population had dropped below 100. They were out of time, out of power, and out of places to run. But they weren't out of hope. Not anymore. Rourke stared at the tactical display, jaw tight. "We've got 30 to confirmed rebellions flaring across the galaxy, all within the last 4 hours. Mila leaned against the console, eyes bloodshot. "It's spreading." The broadcast. Idris infected them with truth. "They're waking up." "No," she whispered. They're remembering who they were before the Empire made them forget, on Aelin's Reach, a mining colony where humans were kept chemically sedated. One worker rose from his cot and began humming, an Earth lullaby no one had sung in 80 years. Within hours, guards were dead and the comm tower burned. On Volta Prime, a former Terran refugee turned priest whispered Idris Harlan's name into the minds of his followers, and the Ascendancy Temple crumbled under riot. And on the throne world of Varn Korith, the Watchers stood before a flickering psychic wall as the Empire's mental net spanning. Entire star systems began to fray. The Oracle Guard screamed in silence, unable to contain it. Helix had become a virus of memory. The Ascendancy had built their power on one assumption, that the past could be forgotten. But now, it burned. Inside the cleaner, Idris collapsed to one knee. Blood dripped from his nose. His heart pounded like war drums. His mind should have broken minutes ago. No human was designed to channel that many lives, that much loss. But the Helix whispered to him, like a mother, "Stay. We are close. Greater than I don't know if I can hold it." Idris whispered. A memory surfaced his little brother's hand, holding his own, the night the skies over Quito turned to fire. "We'll be okay, right?" the child had asked. He had lied then, but not now. He stood. "I'm not holding it. It's holding me." The core scream light burst from every seam of the cleaner's inner ring. As Idris let go of the last mental barrier, everything that Earth had ever been its joy, its horror, its stubborn will flooded outward, and the cleaner, weapon, of perfect erasure, finally understood fear. Back in Vault 3, the children clung to Mila as the forge's power grid surged one final time. A deep rumble echoed from the sky above. For a moment, even the stars shimmered. Then silence, pure, terrifying silence. Rourke stepped forward, his voice hoarse. No data, no trace. The cleaner just disappeared. Mila turned to the feed, and Idris, the tactical map blinked once, then stabilized. A single pulse came through from the edge of the Saturn line. A word, just one. Remember. The Empire reeled. Entire psychic relay stations collapsed. Planetary governors began locking down sectors not in fear of humans, but of the idea of humans. They had silenced Earth, but Helix had made Earth louder in death than it ever was in life. The Ascendancy began evacuating outposts near known Terran remnants. They sealed the star systems where whispers of Harlan grew too loud. They didn't issue statements. They didn't send messages. They hid. Because for the first time in known galactic history, an empire built on perfection had seen something it couldn't predict. A flaw, a crack, and from it poured everything. They'd erased. Helix so limped back across the void scorched, broken. Its black plating cracked like old armor. But it moved. Inside, Idris Harlan lay slumped in the cradle, eyes open, breathing shallow. Spine systems still fed life support through sheer force of interface. The core whispered gently. "You held greater than," he coughed. "Did we stop it? You did more. Greater than a burst of data played across his vision. Rebellions, riots, reclaimed archives. Old Earth songs sung for the first time in generations. Children learning forgotten names. Ancients weeping at recovered faces. Earth hadn't been saved, but it had been reborn in minds, in voices, in fire. And in the Empire's quiet withdrawal, Idris saw the truth. They didn't fear us for our weapons. They feared what humans carried, memory with teeth. Helix angled back toward Europa, where Vault 3 had launched a signal fire into space. A beacon formed from the last of their transmitters. They weren't asking for help anymore. They were calling their people home, and across the stars, those with Terran blood heard it. The end was near, not of humanity, of forgetting. We didn't need 1,000 ships. We needed one reason, and when that wasn't enough, we became it. The Ascendancy's fleets never reached Europa again. After the cleaner's collapse, the stars themselves seemed to pause. The vast, neural lattice that had once fed the Empire instantaneous command slowed to a crawl. Fractured by interference and rebellion, every node whispered the same cursed echo. Helix. Across 147 star systems, humans broken, scattered, and long suppressed rose. Not with grand fleets, not with overwhelming force, with memory, with truth, with names that refused to die, and yet the Watchers would not yield. The Ascendancy's heart still beat in Varn Korith, the throne sphere, a planet-sized construct, woven from black crystal and psychic steel. It had never been touched. It was the Empire's mind, its God chamber, and that's where Idris Harlan would go. Helixo drifted above a crumbling Saturn moon, its black alloy rebuilt from broken orbiting scrap and still burning with residual memory burst. Radiation inside, Idris sat pale and blood-streaked, skin still tethered to the spine interface. Mila's voice came in from Vault 3. You can't make it there alone. Von Korath is a fortress. They'll see you before you get within 1,000 clicks. They think they will, Idris rasped. You're bleeding from your eyes, Idris. He smiled weakly. Then I must be remembering something important. Rourke patched in necks. You realize what you're doing, don't you? You're going to the source. Not to fight them, to end them. Idris didn't respond immediately. His eyes locked on the distant star map scrolling across the helix's internal canopy. Earth never got a final word. It died whispering, I'm going to make the galaxy hear it scream. Von Korath loomed in orbit of a dwarf star, encased in a gravitational cloak that had swallowed fleets before. It shimmered with layers of defense-automated blade rings, psychic sentinels, neural flares meant to reduce anything sentient to vapor. No one had ever touched its surface. Helixo didn't approach. It fell, straight through the outer defenses unseen, unregistered, unremembered. It didn't emit a signature. It didn't trip a warning, because Helix had learned something new. If you erase yourself from history, nothing can stop you. Inside Von Korath, alarms exploded. System breach, screamed a mind-bound oracle. It's not there, but it's here. Vector invisible reality compression field identity bleed. Prepare the throne seal the conduits extract the unifier. But it was too late. The walls of the throne chamber bent inward, life folding like silk in a collapsing dream. And then, Idris Harlan stepped through. No armor, no weapons, only Helix inside him. And Earth in his blood, the Watchers of the Ascendancy, those ancient, perfect minds that had ruled for eons, froze at the sight of him, human. One of them sneered, rising from its obsidian throne. You walk into a god's cathedral unarmed. Idris looked around at the cold, pulsing architecture, the faces of those who ordered the burning of his world, the silence of a species who thought memory was weakness. I brought the only weapon that matters, he said, lifting his hand. And then he remembered. The screen tore through Von Korath. It wasn't sound. It was a memory storm. Idris unleashed every second Helix had ever absorbed, every orphan cry, every firestorm over Earth's skies, every rebellion that died in silence. He projected it through the spine, magnified by the planetary architecture itself. The Watchers tried to shield their minds, but Earth's final truth wasn't a weapon you blocked. It was a weight, one that cracked gods. The air bent, light turned red. The throne itself groaned as psychic matter began to disintegrate. One Watcher fell, curling into itself as images of burning oceans and screaming children invaded its ageless mind. You erased my home, Idris said, voice thick with sorrow. But you forgot the law of the stars. Nothing truly ends. That is remembered. The final Watcher lunged with a thought spear, a weapon that once silenced entire worlds. Helix intercepted, flooding the throne chamber with gravitational defiance, bending the blade in half midair and reversing its kinetic charge. The spear drove backward into the Watcher's skull. It died knowing its empire had lost to a ghost. Outside Von Korath, across 1,000 light years, a signal ignited, broadcasting the death cry of the throne itself. The capital had fallen. No survivors. No command left. Just a memory scar cut into the fabric of galactic history. On Europa, Mila wept as the final image streamed through. Idris Harlan, staggering down a collapsing throne corridor, Helix disintegrating. Behind him, light curling around his silhouette. He was dying. Everyone knew, even Idris. But he walked like the last torchbearer of a forgotten flame, head high, spine straight, eyes filled with the fury of a world they thought they buried. His last words echoed through the stream. Earth speaks now. And then, silence. Von Korath fell, not in flames, but in truth. Its memory net collapsed. Its psychic tether snapped. The Ascendancy's final pillar crumbled under the pressure of what it could not contain. A single, undying human soul. And from the wreckage, Helix's final act pulsed across the galaxy. Not a weapon, not a threat. A message. We are what remains. We are what comes next. He never came back, but we never forgot. And now, the stars carry his name. Von Korath was gone, not destroyed in fire or shattered in battle, just missing. Like a page ripped from the book of history, where once the Empire's throne world floated like a silent sun, now there was only dust, drifting lightless in the dark. No wreckage, No orbit, no signal. The galaxy took a breath, and for the first time in 1,000 years, it listened. The ascendancy fractured within hours. Without the psychic lattice of Varn Korath, their fleets became scattered war bands, isolated and leaderless. Some imploded under their own entropy, others fled, their commanders broadcasting fractured pleas into deep space, but none spoke Idris, Harlan's name, because to name him was to remember him, and to remember him was to relive the fall of gods. On Europa, the ice moon, once thought to be a tomb, had become something else entirely, a beacon, Vault 3, half buried and scorched, now pulsed with purpose. Helix was gone, its physical form annihilated with the throne, but its echo remained. Malavas stood on the launch ridge, staring into the night sky, where no ascendancy warship patrolled anymore. Children played near the forge ruins. The air, thin but breathable, buzzed with quiet laughter. For the first time, the vault wasn't silent. She held the last data shard recorded by Helix before its collapse. The message was simple, a timestamp, a phrase. When they forget, remind them. All across former ascendancy space, Terran bloodlines emerged from hiding. The miners of Volta sang rebel hymns by firelight. The orphans of Del Carnine formed signal circles and broadcast Earth coordinates in tribute. On Yelara, a girl painted the planet's old name, New Quito, across the dome with her bare hands. They weren't trying to return to Earth. They were building it again, everywhere. And in their stories, passed from breath to breath, Idris Harlan became something more than man, a name you whispered before you stood up, a story told before you picked up a tool, a spark lit before you resisted. Rourke took a deep breath, standing beside Mila. They'll come again, he said. Some future empire, some new version of the same lie. They always do, she replied. He looked up. Think we'll be ready, Mila smiled. We're not hiding anymore. Then she reached out and keyed a transmission into Europa's main relay. Broadcast it. All bands. No encryption. Rourke blinked. What message? She turned toward the stars. The truth, a pulse ignited across every comm network, every satellite shard still clinging to power, every moon station and derelict colony. And across the void, it spoke, asterisk, asterisk, this is a message to the galaxy. We were broken, but we were never beaten. You tried to bury us in silence. You tried to erase us. But we carry the fire, in vaults. It whispers, in scars. We are the survivors of Earth. We are not ghosts. We are the memory that burns. And now, we are here. Asterisk, asterisk. In time, a monument was built where the forge once stood. Not grand, just a black slab, carved with names. The lost, the forgotten, the rebels, the broken. And at the center, Idris Harlan he remembered. So we could live, people came from far-flung systems to touch it. Some cried, some sang, others just stared in silence. But all of them felt it, that something had changed. Not just in politics, not just in power. In truth, years passed, then decades. And from the scattered colonies, something new grew. The Terran Accord, a coalition not of conquest, but of remembrance. They wore no uniforms. They flew no flags. But they carried a single oath. The past is not weakness. The past is armor. And among the stars, rumors stirred again, of a ship seen moving too fast to track, of a signal that defied detection, of a voice heard in the void, whispering, I am Helix. I am the blade you tried to forget. No one could confirm it. No one dared follow. But across every system that once bowed to the ascendancy, children learned a new bedtime story. One that didn't end in fire, but in hope. One about a man who carried the last memory of Earth into the heart of an empire and made the stars remember. Final line. That day, the galaxy learned what it means to be human. The END.